Hello, EricTheCarGuy. A lot of you have asked, and I have an opportunity to deliver. I have a 2004 Toyota 4Runner SR5 with a V8 sitting here behind me, and it is in need of a power steering rack. And the symptoms are basically power steering does this. The belt is tight, the fluids are good. In fact, I even tried some power steering fluid conditioner. It's kind of an expensive rack, so we tried all we could. And now we know we got to get in there and replace the rack. Comparatively speaking, racks range from like really easy to oh my goodness hard. So this is not necessarily typical. I've actually never done one on this vehicle, but looking at it, it looks fairly straightforward to me, but I've seen these in the past and they look fairly straightforward. However, the principles that I'm going to show you here will cover a wide range of vehicles, and that's just the practice. As far as the actual nuts and bolts, of course it's going to be specific to this vehicle, but you can carry a lot of this information over to other vehicles. The most important thing to keep in mind before you ever get started doing a power steering rack is no, without a doubt. I mean no like in your head, no, not no. That you are going to need to do an alignment on the vehicle when you're done. There's no way around that. A lot of you have come to me with these like driveway, home, garage methods, whatever. Personally, I prefer the machine. It's set up, calibrated, does a good job, right tool for the right job. So just know that you're probably going to have to go to the alignment shop when you're done with this. The reason is because the power steering rack controls the most important tire wearing angle there is, which is toe. And toe is the inward or outward tilt, this being the front of the tire, this being the back of the tire, of the wheels as far as their angle goes. It is the biggest tire wearing angle. In fact, in most cases it's the only alignment angle you can adjust these days, but it is the most important one. If it's not correct, you're going to eat up your tires and your steering wheel is not going to be straight. So if you're driving down the road and your steering wheel is like this, it's an alignment issue. Anyway. Here it is behind me. Why don't we get started instead of me talking? But those are the things to watch out for. First step is going to be fairly obvious. We need to raise the vehicle up and take the wheels off. Anytime I work under a vehicle, I say this a lot, I wear safety glasses. Anytime you're under something and looking up, stuff is just going to fall on your face. And it's that little piece of rust that gets in your eye that ruins your whole day. So that's all it takes, and that helps a lot. Alright, that's where I stuck the jack. Using the big jack stands today. That should do it. Okay, we're gonna get the wheels off next, but in order to get to a lot of these components, meaning the lines and everything else, I'm gonna remove this lower shield. There's some fasteners up under here that need to be removed in order to get this this guard off to gain access to stuff. But I'm also gonna spray these ends, both sides, with a little bit of penetrating oil so that can soak in while we're doing other stuff. But it's nice that they put the rack, you know, up here up front instead of stuffed in back under there. So that does make it a little bit easier. The challenge is going to be when we go through this hole. My hope is that hole is large enough to accommodate. There's a part that sticks up that attaches to the steering shaft. So we need to make sure that this opening is big enough to get that out once we've got everything disconnected. Before I really get into this, I like to make darn sure that my steering wheel is like dead straight before I even get started. And you can even use a steering wheel holder to hold this in place, but I just like to make sure that steering wheel is straight ahead. Namely, for when I go back and reassemble it, I want to try to get it as close so I can drive it straight down the road as possible. Because remember, you may get done with this and the steering wheel will be like this or like this. In fact, I can barely steer this thing now and it's off the ground. So this power steering rack is not happy. Now, the front parts are hooked in on these. They're 12mm, by the way. Looks like you got one fastener here and one over here that hold this assembly in, and there's these lines that get disconnected. And keep in mind that this is a fairly easy one to do compared to some. Some of these are just really difficult. But then back there's where the steering shaft comes in. But yeah, that power steering shaft, we're gonna may have to knock it loose up here so we can slide it up. That may be something we have to do because it's gonna have to slide off of the power steering rack itself. Now it's gonna be a good time to knock the lock nuts loose on these tie rod ends. So you've had your stuff, so just knock those loose. Hopefully they come as loose as easy for you. Do that on both sides. You want to do that now while things are still hooked up because it's a real pain in the butt when it's not. Alright, now I'm gonna remove the cotter pin from the assembly here. See how I did that? Didn't destroy it at all. I'm gonna buzz this nut off and then hit what it goes through, which would be the knuckle right here with a nice big hammer. That looks like maybe a 19. Now we're up under the subframe here. But the next thing I'd like to try and do is get the steering shaft disconnected from the rack itself. And this is kind of in a tricky spot. I don't even know if I'll be able to get you a good angle on this. But the idea is that, like, a lot of times the bolts like this that go through, you need to remove those completely because the power steering rack has like a little indentation on it to where that bolt locks in. So it's normally a case, and sometimes you have to do this inside the car or truck, but you remove like the lower one, and then there's an upper one on the shaft so that you can take the whole shaft and slide it off. So we looked at those upper ones just a little bit earlier, and I believe that's what we're going to have to do so that we can take this whole steering shaft once we get this fastener out and move the whole thing up. Now we may have to turn the wheel one way or the other to get this into position to where we can get a wrench on it, but that's where we're at right now. Now I'm going to rotate that shaft around so that I can get to that bolt. I'm just turning the steering wheel to do this. So now it's at a nice position, but I want to make sure I get back to center on the steering wheel because a lot of times there's like clock spring wires inside the steering column, things like that, that if you don't get it back on exactly right, you'll really mess it up. So you want to make sure that you're at center when you install and uninstall the old one. I put a little penetrating oil on there too, try and help. Sorry about the light, it's just this is in a very difficult spot to do this. In fact, you can see better than I can right now. Alright, I've removed those other fasteners, or that one fastener down below, and that was just a bolt. Now, there are two further up the shaft that I believe all I'm going to have to do is loosen them, and once I do that, this whole assembly should slide up and I should be able to pull the steering column or steering shaft right off of the right off of it. But you know what? I'm actually going to come in here with my impact, just because it's actually going to be more effective. And now I want to see if this whole assembly will work back and pull upward. And I may actually have to go down to the power steering rack and pry up on it to pull this up off the rack itself. But this is the steering shaft connected to the power steering rack. Once this is disconnected, it's a matter of disconnecting the lines and swapping the rack out. But now that I'm thinking of it, before we get in too deep with this, it's probably a good idea to go check our new part to make sure it's correct before we shoot ourselves in the foot. What we have here is fairly typical. I just took this out of the box. These are usually sealed up, at least to some degree. You can see some of the fluid is leaked out because these are normally shipped that full of fluid. These are remanufactured. Good luck finding a new one, and if you do, it's going to be really, really expensive. But we can see that we've got our two areas where this is held down, and everything looks relatively the same. It looks like these are the two major lines that need to be removed. You got a input and return. I'm going to be honest and say I don't know which is which, but that's what we've got here. And as you can see, it doesn't come with the outer tie rod ends. And that's the trick of this whole video that I'm going to show you, is how to get it like really close. But once again, you're going to need an alignment no matter what. And here's one more tip. There's going to be a core on this. I'd be surprised if you're able to get one of these without a core charge. So you're going to have to save your old one, so don't beat it up. And save these plugs and put them in there. Be nice to your parts guy. He's going to have this sitting on a shelf. And he doesn't need it leaking all over the place before it goes back, so do him a favor. Keep these plugs and install them in the old rack before you send it back. Now that I've got those bolts and everything loose up top, and I'm only going to be able to come in here for a second and show you what I'm about to do. And that's just that I'm going to take a pry bar, stick it up in here, and try to pry this up off the rack. And actually I'm having a heck of a time trying to hold the camera and do this at the same time. But that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to pry this guy right up off the rack. Prying's not working, so I'm going to take this lady slipper and a hammer, Thor, knock that guy right up off there. I'm just going to tap it. You don't need to kill it because you don't want to ruin that U-joint there. I'm going to be honest and say in the end it's taking a little more persuasion, but I'm almost there. But I'm actually taking in my air hammer with this little dead end bit on it, sneaking it up in there on the top of that U-joint and just pushing. It's almost off, and I want to make sure the steering wheel's straight when it does come off. Alright, now I managed to get this thing up off of there, and since this is an external one, you just want to check the U-joint part. So like move it side to side, up and down. It should be fairly stiff. It shouldn't be like really a whole lot of floppy. But now that the power steering rack is free from its stuff, next up I'm gonna do the lines, and this one's just held on by a hose clamp, and it's the low pressure side. The high pressure side is that one with the nut. It's really good to use a line wrench on that stuff, so I highly recommend that, but the larger one's less of an issue. I also soaked that with some penetrating oil while I was getting that shaft off of there. So we're gonna get this guy off here and this hose off, and those are the only two hydraulic connections. Looks like I'm also going to come up under here and loosen this too, so I can get these lines out of the way. That's actually part of that one high pressure line that's coming down. So I'm just going to take that off its mount also. I am going to loosen this part of this hose first, just to get this clamp thing out of the way, so I can freely move this hose around in case I need to. Now I've got a drain pan under here, and I've got my 11/16 is the size. It's on that line. I'm just gonna, and I am using a line wrench. Looks like I'm gonna need to use 2 hands. By the way, this is a line wrench. You see how it goes around most of the fastener? These big fat ones are the best. Because the skinny ones are good for like tight spaces, but the fatter this is, the more meat it's going to have and the less it's going to want to spread open while you try to turn the fastener. Started to move. Well, and this goes on for a while, I'm sure. A couple of things. I discovered another fastener holding the line to the rack. But on this line itself, the whole line wanted to move with the nut. So what I ended up doing was just working the wrench back and forth on it until it started breaking loose from the line, because the line will get rusted up to the inside of the actual fitting, and it'll twist it right off. So you don't want that to happen, because the last thing you want to do is replace one of these lines. They're very expensive, and I think the only place you're going to find one is in a salvage yard that's probably going to be in the same shape as this one, or at the dealer. So don't put yourself in that position. So take a little care. A little more penetrating oil up there is what I've got while I'm working this fastener off here. Okay, after many turns of the wrench, we are now loose and it's off the rack, and I can just actually take this whole thing and put it down inside of my pan to bleed out. And that's exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to just drain the whole system out. Now I'm going to get that other line off, which I'm hoping is not nearly as difficult since it's just a rubber line. I just unclamped this hose and pushed it off. It's impossible for me to try and hold the camera and get this up in there, but once again I'm just letting it drain into my pan. Now I'm going to go for these 2 fasteners here, wrench those off. And yeah, I know what you're saying. This would be a good job for a gear wrench. You'd be right. Well, it appears that there's another side to them down here. I don't really want to take this whole thing off to get a socket on that, so I'll probably just put a wrench on that bottom one too to get these off. But yeah, well, welcome to the world of auto repair. It's going to be extremely difficult to get a wrench up in here. So I am gonna knock this shield loose just so I can get to these 2. Of course, these long bolts want to go and get tangled up and stuff. I'm gonna have to work around that. Now comes the fun part of trying to fish the rack out of here. There we go. Yeah, at least I got one of them out. Maybe I can move this other one over far enough. Angle it. And we're able to sneak that one out. Now comes the really fun part. And this is the part where you usually end up fighting for a while. All I've got to say is try to be patient. Try not to lose it. You will want to. You may want to. Now's the time to come up with a plan. Here's the problem. This has a very awkward shape. So you're gonna have to like fight it to get it out of here one way or the other. I'm actually thinking what I might try to do is take this back through this way and get it in far enough to where I could pull the rack down through here, because I'm not so sure it's gonna go through this hole. It's not looking good. It might fit through that hole, but I don't have a whole lot of confidence that that's going to happen. Service manual should tell you, how the factory wants you to do it. They have it easy. They don't have an engine or a differential or anything like that in the way when they install it. But you've got your own set of challenges when you get it to here, and this would be one of them. So I'm just gonna let the camera go wide and see what I get. And now it's banging up against the diff. Welcome to the world of power steering racks, people. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go to lunch. All right, and after a short little hiatus, we're back. Okay, here's the issue. We got these bolts that go through here on both sides that are gonna be an issue because I wanna try and bring this whole thing back towards me out. I may also have to knock this oil cooler loose to get some more clearance, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the inner tie rod off of this side. In doing so, I'm hoping to be able to bring this bulky side out, and then I'll be able to fish out this other side. So I'm hoping that that is going to get me what I need to get me the clearance that I need to get this thing out of here, because I don't have it right now, so I got to make it.